Today we discuss a science fiction film about the search for a missing girl. What kind of science fiction? Well, it's very much a go in cold and discover that for yourself type of movie. So let's find out if we recommend a mysterious swim in Caddo Lake. Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me as always is David.
I come in peace.
This is a science fiction movie podcast. We get together and talk about sci-fi movie. It's that simple. And coming up on today's show, we are looking at a film from 2024, so a pretty recent film called Caddo Lake, which I think was a straight to Max movie, or at the very least it went to Max after the fact. But yeah, this was recommended by one of the patrons, and I just sort of took them at their word and threw it onto the schedule. So here we are today, and we'll see how it turned out. But we all start spoiler free, of course, as we always do, which is important for this one because it's very much all a kind of mystery, cold kind of film.
Let's just go ahead and throw up the produced by M. Night Shyamalan tag, and that should tell you everything.
I actually didn't know that going in. That was a surprise at the end when his name came up during the titles.
Yeah,
but. Yeah, we'll start spoiler free. We'll give you warning before we get the spoilers. And of course, if you're enjoying the show on YouTube, please do hit the like button. Helps us out a bunch if you do. And you can get bonus shows and bonus content over on Patreon and help keep the show coming. But I'll tell you more about that at the end of the episode. So yeah, the premise of this, I can't really tell you because I went in cold. I was told to go in cold, and having seen it, I do think you should go in cold. To the point where going in, I didn't even know the type of science fiction that it was going to be. I think that most people should go in without that knowledge, because I think it does work. The mystery is part of the charm of it. I do have something to say though, which is going to be well. I'll save that for. Oh no, I'll just do it now. Okay. So
let's see.
I feel so sorry for this film. Right?
Really? Okay.
I feel so sorry for it because I don't usually ask you first, but I'll just say it. I think it's a good movie. I think it's well done. I think it's well directed. I think how it reveals its story is quite smart. But there's a problem. I won't say what the TV show is because it would spoil the movie, but I have seen a TV show of a certain type from we'll just say the last 5 to 10 years. And because of that, and because this movie is so similar in concept to said TV show, there is a moment, there's like one clue 30 minutes in where I immediately called everything exactly correctly. And I mean, I didn't know at the time it was going to be 100% correct, but then as the movie started to reveal things in the last half hour, I was like, oh, I was right about everything. And it's not because the movie does anything wrong. Arguably, except from being inspired by a very specific TV show. Now, when we get into spoilers, I can say what the TV show is, because this does not spoil the TV show in any way by saying this, because the show's premise is very, upfront quite early on about what it is. But because of that, and because I was thinking of that show, I just kind of got everything very, very much earlier than I think the movie wanted me to get everything.
I think I know what show you're talking about. I haven't seen it, but I think I know what show you're talking about.
Okay, well, I'll definitely go in a bit more depth once we get to spoilers, but it was an impossible comparison to not make, to the point where I am actually kind of convinced that the co-directors and writers of this, which is the same two people wrote and directed it, I am convinced that this is at least somewhat inspired by that show, because the similarities in the broad concept are so striking that I cannot believe that they're just unaware of its existence.
No, that's reasonable. Yeah, I mean, based on, again, I haven't seen the show. If it's the one I'm thinking of, I'm reading the synopsis right now. Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. As far as what we can say in spoiler free is I'll just say there's two plot lines going on. There's one character whose mother recently died, and he's basically convinced that it's not as simple as what all the doctors have deduced it as, and he's kind of investigating that. As I say investigate, he's just kind of obsessed with it. He's not really a detective or anything like that.
He just keeps going after the doctor, just like, can you take another look? And he's like, oh my god, this is the 17th time.
Yeah, he's a little bit traumatized. He's clearly not over everything that he's been going through. And then the other plot line's about a teenage girl who's kind of struggling with her home life because she doesn't really like that she's got a stepdad, and she's always fighting with her mother. And clearly she's ready to like try and get away from her home life as quickly as possible. She wants to try and finish high school early so she can just go to college and just be done with this family.
Yeah. And the step, or not the stepmom, the mom is absolutely awful to her. Like she absolutely has every right to want to get out of that house. It's not just teenage angst. Like there is some real family trauma there to unpack.
Yeah, I mean it's a little bit more even the more we find things out, but yeah, it definitely does feel like she's ready to jump down her daughter's throat like every second, like regardless of what the subject is. So, but yeah, I mean that's all I can say, and obviously that's not telling you what the science fiction part of this is because I do think that's a spoiler. So. Just it's science fiction. Just trust us.
Yes,
just trust us.
It is science fiction, and I think, I mean, if we're talking about how I feel about it as well, I did enjoy it. I will say that I think that the first half an hour or so kind of struggles to keep my attention a little bit. I'm just like it's introducing all the characters, introducing their plights and stuff, and I'm into it for about 10 minutes, but then they just keep on going with it and they keep on setting up some more stuff, and some of the things for like a moment bring me in, but I feel like every scene just lasts a little bit too long where I feel like it's starting to drag, and I just want it to get to the point where it introduces not even the sci-fi concept, but even just the plot, like the inciting incident just needs to happen already. Because I mean, just the way the movie is structured, the very first thing we see is the death of the male character's mom, like the car accident that causes it. And I thought that was already like, that was going to be it. That was the inciting incident. And then we start dealing with his stuff. But as we move very quickly into it, you realize, oh no, that's just backstory. The actual inciting incident is going to be something else. And it felt like it took forever to get there. Once we were there, once it got into the concepts of like, okay, we're moving with the sci-fi, we're doing the main plot here, I was into it. I did really enjoy it, and I think they did a great job with setting that all up and exploring what they needed to, but it just took a little too long to get there for me.
I could see it. It takes its time getting there. You know, once they start sprinkling little teases in that there's something more mysterious going on, it is definitely when it picks up, and there's kind of like a sort of like a drive in the plot once something very specific happens that starts to give it this sense of energy. So yeah, I mean, maybe just trimming down that first like 20-30 minutes to like be a bit more just efficient in how it gets all the information across in a more timely manner, perhaps. Because the movie's not long, so it's like 105 minutes, but if you could cut out 5 to 10 minutes of that first half hour just to tighten it up, I could probably see it fixing that complaint you had. I mean, I definitely felt like, yeah, it was just taking a while to get there. I didn't think it was a chore to get through by any means, but you know, but again, your mileage may vary on patience there.
I mean, I think it felt to me like this intro bit was unimportant once everything was considered. It was setting up characters and stuff like that, but even the things that are hinting at the larger plot going on are kind of not necessary to understanding the larger plot. Just for context, this all happens in a bayou around like the Louisiana, Texas area. And they keep on hinting that like, oh, there are wolves out there. Like that's a recurring motif in the intro bit. There's like people are seeing wolves. And I thought that was going to be something big. And really it wasn't. Really, it just kind of falls by the wayside very quickly. It's a symptom of the larger thing overall, but it doesn't matter. It being wolves doesn't matter for me.
I mean, no, it doesn't. But I never really thought it did mean anything more than that. Right, so that didn't bother me.
Maybe that's just me latching onto the wrong stuff there, because I'm sitting there like, oh, what do the wolves mean? The letters, what do they mean?
No, it's just what you said. It's a symptom of what's going on. It's not the important part of what's going on. You know that. But I think once it gets going, like I think it's fairly compelling. But there's definitely some writing tricks that it does that was kind of like playing its hand to me, just because I've seen enough movies and TV shows that have tried to conceal certain things. I'm like, okay, I'm noticing a couple of things here that are hinting at something. And then once they gave me a real hint, I was like, okay, I think I just clocked everything. And that didn't actually hurt like enjoying the rest of the movie. But I think I would have come out of this had it not been for the TV show that is very, very similar to, had this been like my exposure to these ideas, the way they're presented here, I think I would have come out of this feeling like, oh, this is a gem. And instead I'm coming out of it going, oh, this is a really solid, well done little thing that's a lot like that TV show.
Yeah.
And that's a bit of a shame. It's why I said I feel bad for it, because I think there's a lot of good stuff here, but it was impossible not to make that comparison. And I do wonder how this is working for people who have not seen that show. Who have seen
I haven't seen it, so I can fill you in on that. But it feels to me like this was a movie that had a lot of thought and process put into it in the pre-production phase, and it just felt like the post-production, like the thing that gives it that extra spark, that real extra pop to it, just felt a little bit lacking. It kind of just felt like, as a creative and apparently not original, but inventive as the script is, it felt like the actual production itself was limited to a straight to streaming sort of level to it, rather than being something that I could ever imagine actually hitting a theater.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've seen a lot of bland straight to streaming things. This is sticking out above a lot of them. I mean, just compare this to Electric State, which we just did very, very recently. Like, I think this has a lot more personality than that movie does.
Oh yeah, no, there are definitely tiers within straight to streaming, but there's always a cap before you get to, and this could actually be in theaters.
I mean, I guess, but I don't, like, lots of small movies go to theaters, though. Like, I don't think it not being big in scope necessarily, like, there's a line that has to be considered there. Like, you know, sometimes a smaller, more intimate movie is an even better theater experience than the big bombastic, blockbuster.
And I'm not talking about it in terms of, like, you know, how much money did they throw at it. It felt more in terms of how did they use their production? It just felt a little bit less on the back end. Like, I would have liked to see, you know, maybe slightly tighter editing, maybe a little bit more like color grading and stuff like that. Just a little bit. It just kind of felt like, okay, we edited this together, it like works, but that extra post-production time was not really spent on it here.
Okay, I don't know if I feel that, but fair enough. I think the performances are solid enough. It definitely plays it very straight. The characters are, you know, this is not a jokey movie where there's lots of like wisecracks or anything like that. So it's got that going for it, which at this point I'm pleased by. It takes its plot very earnestly and seriously. The characters, of course, are discovering things. And it definitely feels like an indie sci-fi movie in a lot of ways. And if you like that kind of vibe, this is definitely going to sort of be hitting that.
Not to spoil too much, but my homework for this, I picked perfectly because it is the exact same vibe. It is that indie sci-fi where, like, it takes a while to get into the sci-fi element. I nailed my pick this week.
Interesting. I'm curious what that is. I don't know what your pick is.
Mm-hmm. We'll see.
Is it one I liked?
You were pretty positive, yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. And honestly, we're at the point now where I don't know how much more we can say without getting into spoilers.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything I want to bring up in terms of, like, the characters themselves. You said the acting's fine, and I do agree, but there is this issue where there are one or two characters in this that I feel are not given enough of a introduction when I first meet them, so that when later on in the movie, when they start popping up more, I'm having to remember whether or not, like, this is a character we've even met before. The one that got me was the sheriff character, who does show up for like one scene very early on, but he just kind of pops in, he barely says anything. But then later in the movie, he has multiple scenes dedicated to himself, and I'm like, is this the same guy? Is this someone else? And it is the same guy, but it's just one of those things where I think that if we're going to be spending time with these characters, then we should get a little bit more of a focus on them when they're showing up here, just to let me know that these guys are important and the other background characters are not, because there are a lot of background characters in this.
I don't think he was important, though, is what I would say to that.
I mean, important to the plot, no, but he is a named character who is in multiple aspects of the plot. So I just wanted to know that I'm looking at the same guy here.
I mean, what it sounds like you're saying is that you just kind of forgot he existed, and when he popped up again, you weren't sure if you'd seen him already.
Honestly, it's that, and also he looks a lot like the stepdad. Like, they both got, like, balding goatee, like, same gray pattern as well. And I'm like, I can't, is this him? I don't know who I'm looking at.
Now, you've done this with other movies where you, like, for some reason, like, old white men, you just can't tell apart. No,
it's going to be real confusing when I get older. Yeah. That's just, who's that man in the mirror?
No,
get him out of here.
The stepdad's played by Eric Lange, whose face I've definitely seen in other things, so I never confused him with anyone else.
That's fair.
Just because I've seen him, I don't even know what I've seen him in. I'll only click on him and find out where I've seen Eric Lange before.
I do have another similar thing to that of confusing actors for each other, but that would actually kind of spoil things, so I'm not going to say that until we get into spoilers.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, honestly, there's not a whole lot to say without spoiling the crap out of it, and I feel like we're at that point where we just have to do it. I'll just say that I do think it's worth watching. I do think that it's a solid little sci-fi movie that, you know, I think it's better than, you know, a number of these, like, you know, movies from this decade that we've done the past, like, 6 months, you know, because we've been squeezing in a lot of these 2020s sci-fi movies, you know, 2020 to 2024, and I do think this sort of sits kind of above the average quite comfortably. I'm not saying it's the best of those that we've done by any means that we've squeezed in, but I do think it's better than, you know, a lot of the you know, like if I was picking between this and say like Little Fish, for example, to compare it to one that we did a few months ago, is I think I like this a lot more than Little Fish. I think Little Fish, like, there was potential in there, there's obviously good ideas in there that we talked about, but ultimately I felt kind of underwhelmed that it didn't really fulfill its premise. I do think here this kind of does, like, fulfill what it's trying to do by the end. You can make some critiques if you want, and sure, but, like, I think ultimately this kind of lands what it's trying to do. It's just how much it affects you and how much it hits you and how exciting you thought all the revealing was as it was unraveling. Right.
Yeah, no, I think that's, if I look back, because obviously we started changing up the rating categories specifically now. Looking back, a big part of recent films we've been doing is the script is the weakest part. And I think that this is one where the script is actually the strongest part of the movie. I think they came into this with a very solid idea of, this is what we want to do, this is exactly how we're going to do it. And they pulled it off. They really did manage to get whatever was in the screenplay onto screen. So, I think that's a change of pace for sure, especially when you're considering things like Electric State and stuff like that. Yeah.
Although Electric State's not going to be in our countdown because that's a 2025 movie.
It won't be in our countdown even if it is allowed to be in our countdown.
That's a very good point, actually, because it was terrible. But now we're doing a first half of the decade top 10 soon. So 2020 to 2024 is the cutoffs. Anyway, okay, we just have to do it. Spoilers for Caddo Lake. You have been warned. We have to get into it.
Yes.
And I'm about to yell something right away. So
all right, hold on. I got a Sharpie here. Let me write down.
The name of the show. Go on.
Yep.
All right. So just to be clear here, I'm about to spoil things. You have been warned.
Oh wait, hold on. You flipped my camera. I need to write it backwards. All right, got it.
Oh, I'm falling all over the place here. All right. Have you seen Dark?
Got it.
Because I've seen Dark. Let me tell you about Dark. Even just early on, the tone was kind of reminded me a little bit of Dark, but particularly when it turns into being about, like, a kid who's went missing, and my brain just started going, well, we're seeing and hearing weird things in the lake, we're implying something, and there was, like, a small span of time where I'm like, okay, it's either time travel or it's an alternate dimension thing, right, where they're going through to other versions of Earth, whatever. It's one of those two things. And then,
I mean, they kind of hint early on that it might be like a monster sort of thing, because, like, people disappearing, and there's also a crocodile cut that's, like, half chomped in half or something,
which is all explained. Like, once you get, like, other bits and pieces later. All that stuff does fit into it neatly. But
Yeah.
like, as soon as they did a thing where a character in both plots had the same necklace, I went, okay. Right?
Yeah.
Especially since by that point I'd already like sussed out that these two plots, because once the girl like is missing and like the parents, right? So the girl's the little sister of the female lead. So Ellie's the older sister here who's having trouble with her mum and that. We'll get into all this. But when Ellie's little sister or stepsister disappears and people start looking for her, and we're still continuing this plot with Paris, the male lead of the movie, who's investigating what happened to his mother, and he's also weirded out because he had like a little mini seizure. I mean, that's maybe a bit harsh word, but something akin to that on the lake. Yeah. He had like a weird experience where his hearing went away.
He had something that apparently was similar to what his mom had.
Yes.
And the doctors called those seizures. So
yes. Right. So he's sort of investigating that. So he's in and about the lake. And very, very quickly into this part of the movie, I went, I can't help but notice that there is no reference to anything about this missing girl in his plot. Right. And it also occurred to me, I've seen Ellie use a smartphone. I have not seen anyone in his side of the story pull out a phone.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, his stuff's in the past, this stuff's in the present. And the second there was those two necklaces, one that the little girl had, and then one that he had from his mother, I went, well, she's went back in time. The little girl is his mother. And then as soon as Ellie's mom started saying, your dad left us years ago, and I went, wait a minute, you're Ginger. And his love interest is Ginger.
Right. So this is where my face blindness gave me the reveal beforehand. So I'm watching this movie, and we see that the love interest is Ginger, and I'm like, oh, okay, but like we see her from like kind of afar. Like Paris is looking at her from a car. She's a good like 50 feet away. Mm-hmm. And then we cut to the Ellie plot, and Ellie is talking to the mother, who's also a Ginger. We get to see her up close, and I'm like, oh, that's the same character. That's the same person.
And
like,
you're actually inadvertently right.
Right, exactly. They're two totally different actresses, but for like the entire first half of the movie, I'm like, oh, those are the same person. And then by the time I realized they were different actresses, the movie had already revealed it. They had already shown us like, no, that's actually supposed to be different characters up until this reveal. So
wait. So you obviously they are the same character. You're technically right, but you're right in an accidental way. So you thought before the reveal that there was two different parts of the timeline and there's like 20 years of age difference between them. You thought that this Ginger woman was having like a rekindling fling with Paris and then going home to her older husband and like her teenage daughter.
Well, okay, the husband is not present for the first like 20 to 25 minutes, or at least is not introduced as the husband. They say like, oh, what about Daniel, whatnot. I thought there was something of like a fling going on. I thought there was some sort of an affair. And then as it continued on, I'm like, oh, wait, no, that doesn't really make any sense here. And then they revealed the time travel aspect. And I was like, oh, I think that was supposed to hit different for me. I think that was supposed to be something where I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, I got who the stepdad was, like at the family dinner scene.
It took me like 2 scenes after that. It took me because with everybody being around for the dinner, I didn't know if like, is he just extended family? Is he like the patriarch of this family? At
no point was I thinking the two Gingers were the same character.
Yeah, no.
So I didn't have that. I'm
totally face blind there
until I realized, wait, they're the same character because they were, but not in the way you thought.
Yeah. No, see, that's just my brain is automatically like, don't worry, I got you covered, but it's going to be real hard to explain later.
It's like you stumbled blindly into the winning jackpot of something. Yeah.
It's filling out a math test and accidentally like subtracting something twice, so you end up getting the right thing. It's like, well, you messed up, but you got it wrong.
So yes, so just to like explain the larger picture of this, because it's going to be very confusing to try and talk around it, right? Oh, you've built
I had to do this for myself.
Okay, David, I'm just going to be honest. See, whenever you do anything to try and explain something, you always do it in such a weird, complicated way that doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm ignoring what David's shown on the screen. The audio listeners don't have to worry about that.
All right.
Right?
It's a family tree. What are you talking about?
Right. So, in 2003,
Yes.
we have Paris. Paris's mother has died in a car accident when she had something similar to a seizure, which sent them into the water, and he tragically couldn't get her out. She was already sort of dead in the water or whatever, right?
And the father survived, and I swear to God, I remember there being some mention of like a brother or sister, but I think I made that up because there's no later reference.
Yeah. What do you mean the father survived? The father wasn't there.
The father wasn't in the car?
No, Paris was in the car.
I thought, okay, never mind. I thought that was the cause of, because he has health problems all throughout. I thought that was the cause of his health problems, but
no, he's just old.
Again, okay, fair enough. I guess I was just conflating two things. I thought that was a whole thing where the whole reason he's got like this limp in this cough is because of the car accident.
I mean, unless I missed something, but I definitely did not catch that if that was the case.
Nah, fair enough.
Because I think part of the guilt that Paris has is that he was there and he couldn't, do anything. He feels helpless, kind of thing.
Right, right.
So he is obsessed with his mother being gone, right? Right. So that's one part of this family tree. The other plot, we're introduced to Ellie, who's a teenager, and her mum live with the mum's like new husband and his young daughter, right? Who's Anna, and she gets kind of unwell with Anna, right? Anna really idolizes her, but we find out later though that Anna sometimes worries that she doesn't like her because she's always going to stay with a friend, and it's because she hates just staying in this home with someone who's not her dad, and she doesn't like her mother very much, and it's the whole thing. But she's actually quite nice with Anna. Like they have quite a nice little big sister, little sister thing going on, right? So she keeps saying throughout the film about how her dad went missing, and there's a big confrontation at one point where her mother Celeste, which is Ginger older Ginger, right? Yes. Right, older Ginger mom. She says, he didn't go missing, he left me. He left us. And he went with another woman. I met her once even. She was crazy. She yelled at me. That's one of your time travel-y hints for later, everyone. Right? And it's like, okay. And that was the scene, by the way. That was the scene where I went, oh, Paris is her dad. Right? That's the way it just clicked. I was like, Paris is the dad. I got it right there and then. And it's like, okay. And that all turns out to be true. So the little sister goes missing and ends up in 1952, where...
We don't know that yet, but...
We don't know that. I'm just explaining the bigger picture, right? She goes back in time to 1952, and because Paris, later in the film, is sort of like jumping through the times without really knowing where he's going, he ends up running into her injured, lying in the forest, or in... Well, it will be the swamp, but right now it's completely dry in this time period. And she's got like a bit of a branch stuck in her side, and he's like, oh no. He doesn't know who she is. He's just like, oh, there's a little girl in trouble, I need to help her. And he takes her to the road, but the car's like... What? And they're also building the dam that's been there for his entire life. What's going on there?
He's starting to put it together a little bit. You can see the wheels turning. He goes up to the people. He's like, take care of the girl. Also, what year is this?
And they're like, it's 52. And he's like, oh, no, that's not good. So he tries to get back, right? So, while this is happening, it's Ellie, who's also time hopping because she's looking for her little sister and ends up going through different times. She ends up in 2005, right? 2 years after the events of the Paris part of the movie, where he has been missing for 2 years. And she ends up encountering the young Ginger, who goes by C, but that's obviously just a nickname for Celeste.
Yeah, that's for the audience's sake. That's to keep it secret there.
Yeah. And she like Googles the dad, but she also Googles his mother, because there's a whole big thing where she sees the necklace in the car and she confronts what turns out to be the younger version of her mother with a little baby version of her. And so this is the scene that she referenced earlier where this crazy woman came up and seemed to know where he was. And the mother assumed this was like another woman that he was seeing. But no, it's actually his daughter from the future and her daughter from the future.
Because the whole time Ellie is yelling about like, this necklace, it belongs to me. Like, I know this necklace. And she's like, wait. The only reason you would think it belonged to you is if Paris says it belongs to you. Where is he? Where's my husband?
Yes. So she goes and Googles her grandmother, effectively, and discovers, oh yeah, there's a class photo of the school from 1953 or whatever, and there she is. There's little Anna, and then there's a photo of her getting married in like the 70s or whatever, and like so on and so forth. And oh shit, she had a whole life, right? So it's like, okay. And this is where my mind flashed back to that first family dinner scene where like Ellie's complaining and she's like, I'm not even related to anyone at this family dinner. And I'm like, turns out you are, because your grandmother's sitting right there.
Which I really like. I like it from the viewpoint of like the theme for her being this thing where she feels alienated and like all of her family is gone. And by the time that we get to the end of the movie, it's, you know, revealed that she may not be in the right generation, but she is related to all of these people that she's come to know. And so it's a real good plot point for her. I think it's a real nice character arc that she explores.
Yeah, I mean, that's the heart of the movie, I think, is Ellie's like exploration of this. But it also ends up like doing some other things here where part of like Celeste's whole thing is that she has been quite bitter ever since Paris disappeared, thinking that he just left.
I like to imagine that as Ellie was growing up, she's like, man, Ellie reminds me a lot of that bitch who stole my man.
Yeah. I was like, and maybe that's why she's a little bitter towards her daughter, because even if she's not realizing it consciously, like, something about you I just don't like.
Yeah,
something just
about you reminds me of a grocery store like a decade ago.
2 decades ago. Come on.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Oh, well, I think they said it's 2022 at one point, so... Yeah,
I was thinking she was
years.
A baby, and then teenager, I was just rounding down, but it's closer to 2 decades, you're right.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like, all that stuff is well done, and there's a lot of other little things that do the whole, oh, hey, what, the little boat I just brought back in has suddenly disappeared, where is it? And it's because... when Ellie starts hopping through time and she comes back to the house and finds out she's there in that same morning again, she sneaks off and steals the boat herself from the future.
Yeah.
So
this time travel method is the everything has always happened the way it always has happened. Like there is no way to change time. It has always been the way it is. And
no one really tries, to be fair. Like no one ever gets to the point where they're trying to manipulate anything. They're just kind of discovering what's going on. And the way the time travel kind of works here is that there's kind of, I mean, obviously it's never really explained why it's happening. That's just kind of like the thing you have to accept is, you know, it's a natural phenomenon of
the tiny bit of magic that you just need to take in to move on.
But it's, you know, there's a random element to it where it does kind of come off in the sense that it's not completely random in that you'll never get back to the right time period necessarily if you try and go back. But it does kind of feel like because it's this invisible force field you're walking through that there's no real way to like aim where you're going or predict where you're going to pop out. So you know, it's tough.
So just to be clear on this, the lake is going through a drought, and apparently every time that there is a drought, this magical portal thing opens up that allows you to travel to any other time that there has been a drought at this lake.
Yes, but clearly you can also travel within the time of the drought as well, because Ellie does that, where she just goes back like a week, because the drought's been going on for, I don't know, 3 months or whatever.
Probably,
so it's like, okay, this is interesting. And that was the other hint as well, is that as soon as Ellie started having like the handshakes, because she was going through this time portal stuff, and also so was Paris, I was like, okay, yeah, they're all related. Like the reason why the mum was having these tremors is because she went through time, which was also the other big hint that it was going to be little Anna, who turns out to be his mother.
I was thinking for a moment, is this like a genetic thing? Is this a thing where like nobody else can go through except for people in this bloodline? But then obviously the thing I was saying before with the wolves is that there was apparently a pack of wolves that was in the area ages ago. They went extinct or they migrated out, but they're still here in this bubble, so they're able to just exist here forever.
Well, it's not so much that they're existing here forever, it's more just that they're bleeding through at different times. Like, you know, at some point they walk through the time portal, and then, like, I'm sure they go on and die, just whatever. But it's just that you're seeing them from a different time period.
Yeah, and that's the other thing about this portal is that I don't think there's a visual element to it, but there is an audio element where anybody nearby can hear stuff that's through the different times.
Sounds sometimes bleeds through. It's not always, it's not constant, but sometimes there'll just be something. Because early on you hear like some like, what I thought was like cannon fire. I thought it was like a naval battle from the past or something coming through. It turns out to be demolition stuff when they're building the dam. You see them using explosives, and that's what the banging was. But it's actually, I thought it was going to be more of a big thing, actually, because there's a whole moment where Ellie's able to get back to the time she started in when she started exploring, but she can hear her phone going off, and she follows the sound, and it's like her anchor to get back. And I thought, that feels like it's going to be a thing. And it actually wasn't. I thought it was going to be. She actually instead got a rope from the boat and like sort of tied it as a path, which existed through time until it didn't. And when the portal closed because it started raining and the drought was gone, it got cut really harshly, which explained how that alligator got cut the way it did.
Yeah.
At the start of the movie.
Yeah, very early on, there's this alligator that a bunch of kids find, and there was just a straight line through it, like right in its back hind leg, and they're all thinking like, oh, it was eaten by something. Something must have been out there. And that's where, for a moment, my mind went, giant monster movie. We're out in the bayou. Like, this is going to be some terrifying creature they got to fight. But then, obviously, as we find out, it's just whenever rain comes down or through whatever means, as we find out later, the dryness of the lake is, wetted again. Then whatever's at the edge of the portal just immediately snaps.
I'm sure that's the scientific term for it. The dryness of the lake got wetted again.
Look, it's complicated meta science stuff. We can make up whatever terminology we want.
I feel like there's probably real terms for a drought, and then like the lake filling up again. I'm sure there's probably actual terms for that.
I'm sure if you can come up with it, prove me wrong.
Well, I don't. It was just a very weird phrasing, is all I mean.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Honestly, I got about halfway through that sentence, and I'm like, I just need to end this. Use the first word that comes to mind. Wetted.
The big bathtub in the ground filled up again.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's what a bayou is. It's just a big bathtub in the ground.
Yeah, so they use this visual of the dam a lot, so sometimes like we don't get a clear cut idea of what time period we're in. There's a part where Paris is kind of traveling through, and there's definitely times where it feels like we're really early on because the dam's still being built, but there's also times where it's like, oh, it's kind of falling apart, or there's like a little bridge as well at one point in the lake that we see be pristine at one point. We see be run down in the present day. We see it being even more run down. And because I was actually thinking at one point, is there going to be like some subtle hints at one point that we're actually far in the future, but we're never going to like see anything futuristic, right? We'll just see like the debris of what used to be the dam just kind of like sitting there kind of thing. But they never did anything with that. They really focused in on just everything that connects all these characters in the family, and also just the weird idea that that Paris's daughter. Paris's mother is the stepdaughter of his love interest, which neatly circumvents any of the weird incest questions that might have came up.
Yes. However, and this is one thing they don't explore in the movie, and I think it's good they didn't, but they do specifically say that Paris's father is still alive in like modern day, 2022. He's in a hospital, mind you.
Yeah, he can't speak. He's in pretty rough shape, but he is technically alive.
So there is a chance, because Celeste was obviously very close to that family, there is a chance that at some point Anna met that man and then went back in time and ended up marrying the younger version of that man. True. That's the only part that's a little bit weird to me, but the movie doesn't explore it.
I think it's okay because even if they had met, I don't think either character was ever aware of who the other was relative to the other part of their life that they're going to encounter each other. So I don't think it ever becomes like a
Although that is one bit of the movie that I thought was going to be like slightly explored. I didn't think it would be a full big thing, but a tiny little subplot of what did Anna do when she got back to 52? Like, she woke up and she was probably saying like, where's my iPad? Where's my, what do you mean it's 1952? When am I going to be able to go down to the mall? And they're just like, what are you talking about, kid?
I mean, they don't really explore it, but I suspect that she probably got a lot of therapy or whatever equated to that in 1952 and was told that this is a bunch of nonsense and that she's been a child and she has to accept reality. And at some point, she had to just accept this is my reality and I can't really do anything about it. But I think the implication, though, of her, like, it kind of suggests to me that at some point she kind of knew that she was, like, catching up to, like, maybe, like, close to the time period she came from. Because I think the idea that she was getting these like handshakes again, and she was like having these moments, because they mentioned at one point that she used to have these years ago, and obviously it coincides with the last time there was a drought. It makes me think that she was going to the lake and actually trying to maybe like figure it out, maybe not go back because she has like a whole life here now, but it does suggest that she was still trying to investigate it, because like she's had this her whole life, that she went through some sort of weird time barrier and ended up in the past, and she's always remembered who her family was and tried to get back there, because the big thing in the movie really is this idea that, you know, Celeste thought that the person she loved just disappeared on her, and the last encounter she has with them when they're younger does kind of like end on an ominous note where he's like, I'm not going to, because she's like, hey, admit that you want me to stay with you and be here with you, and he's like, I can't say that, and he leaves, and then she never sees him again. So like it definitely feels quite cold in the hindsight from her perspective. But the idea at the end is that like, no, he never actually abandoned anyone. He was trying to get back. Like, you know, the big tragic ending is, and he's in modern day and he's trying to get back home, and he unfortunately dies when he tries to. Yeah,
that's one thing that I really like about the tension in this movie, of how it rockets up, because obviously if you've got this idea of, you know, time travel, there's always this aspect of you don't have to worry about a deadline because you can always just make it back with time travel. But what I like about this is that from the beginning of the movie, they keep on saying the dam sucks. Like, it's in modern day, it is about to fall apart, it's not good anymore, and they need to upkeep it. So when we get to the end of the movie and there is a flash flood, just a whole bunch of rain coming down at once, there is this immediate threat of the moment this dam breaks, you will never be able to time travel again. And so it becomes this race against time of he needs to get back to there before it floods, or else he's going to be stuck here forever. And I really like that way that they build up that tension, because it is something that is, like I said, a problem with time travel movies, of how do you keep the tension when you can go when you want.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's specific windows you can go to, and like you say, like even if it wasn't going to be permanent, there'd still be like a thing where, oh, well, the drought's ending, so you won't be able to use the time travel stuff again for maybe like a decade. So you're stuck here for however long. So that would still be a bit of tension, but you're right. This feels like, oh no, this is permanent now. Like, yeah. So I think that stuff's well done. Obviously, there's a lot of tension with his plot in the back half of the movie, because they find him with Anna's boat, and they're like, how did you get that boat? So he becomes the prime suspect in the missing, you know, girl that's, you know, happened. And it gets to this excitement where you're like, wait, is he going to see the older version of Celeste? Is he going to, because she's going to recognize him. There's no way she's not going to recognize him. And she's going to be like, wait, why are you still this age? This makes no sense. This is the age you were when you disappeared. And you're sort of waiting for it. And I like, part of me is almost a little disappointed that they didn't like have a scene where they got to speak, but they do have this moment where he kind of like steals their car and she sees him and she's just kind of in shock and doesn't know what to say.
I love and hate that moment simultaneously, because I wanted there to be a little bit more, but also we're in the third act, we got to keep the tensions high, we can't stop it for her to like freak out over the fact of this. So it worked for what they had, but it could have used a little more.
Well, I think the reason why they didn't do that is because they wanted the moment where she kind of understands that it really was him to come from Ellie, because I think because there's a whole scene where when Ellie gets back to the right time period, more or less, right? You know, I think maybe an extra day has passed or something, but it's like, it's close enough. She's fine. Like, this is, stay here. Don't go back through the time barrier. And right, her stepdad finds her, and he's like, you know, very gentle, and he's like, hey, you're okay. We're still looking for Anna. And she's like, hey, how long has she been missing? And he's like, 3 days. And she has this moment where she kind of leans in and says, I know she's okay. Because from her perspective, she's seen that she's going to live a relatively full life. She's going to get married. She's going to have a kid. She's, you know, she got to live, and she's not just dead somewhere in a ditch, which is obviously what everyone's worried about because a girl went missing. And it's this really nice little moment, I thought, this scene, because he kind of like hears it and then starts to tear up, because he obviously he's not taking this as a sort of fact that she's saying. He's taking this as like a spiritual thing of like, yeah, I believe she's okay too. I have to, like, but it's more of a like a comfort thing. But she actually means it because she knows she's okay. But as this scene was playing out, I was thinking, okay, this is really nice, but the final payoff to this arc has to be with her and her mum. It has to be them kind of like finding some sense of peace, because they've been at odds throughout the movie. Like we said, the mum feels really snappy with her and doesn't want to talk about anything with her. When Ellie brings up her dad or needing this permission slip to like take this extra class, she's like, no, like me and your stepdad will sign it. Like, you don't need your dad's death certificate. That's a bunch of nonsense.
Yeah, well, it's because it's trying to really hammer home that idea of this isn't your real family, because she's saying like, I need your signature and dad's death certificate, and she's like, well, no, Daniel's your dad now. Your stepfather's your dad now. He can sign it. And she's like, no, it needs to be my biological dad. And since he's dead, I need that death certificate. And it's just this battle between the two of them of essentially Celeste saying, you need to join this family. You need to like get with it. He's gone. He's not coming back. Because obviously she's bitter about him potentially going off with another woman. But she is not even really hoping for finding her dad. She accepts that her dad is dead. It's just that she feels completely unwelcome in this house with the step family. And
yeah, it does kind of feel like she's more like the victim here in the early scenes. Not that Celeste has been a monster per se, but she is like you say, being very cold, not really listening to her, getting angry. And later on, when she starts traveling through time, Ellie ends up going back about a month to when there was a fight where apparently Ellie like threatened her mum and threw plates at her, and it was bad enough that the stepdad came out and spoke to her after, and he's like even like before this part of the movie, when she was leaving the dinner afterwards, he tried to come out and say, hey, come back for breakfast tomorrow, it was nice having you. He's always like, the stepdad's kind of always a good guy. He's always trying to just be as nice as possible and try and make this work and be he's putting in the extra effort with the stepdaughter to try and make this happen. And he actually comes out and says, look, and he's a kind of a religious man, and he's like, oh, I always pray that you and your mum will find peace, but like, I can't do that tonight. So, come back, go stay with your friend, but tonight, like, you have to be gone. And it felt like it felt very stern compared to him and the rest of the movie, but it also felt like, okay, this feels a bit earned, and it kind of sets up this idea that, okay, Ellie is kind of part of the problem here. Her attitude, the movie kind of hid from us exactly like her part and what's made this tension get worse over time. And so and it's no accident that thematically both plots, like both her and Paris, they're both obsessed with a parent they don't have anymore, right? That's kind of the running theme, even before we get to the more direct connections and the time travel stuff. That's the big connective tissue. So the final scene really had to be Ellie and Celeste, and like Celeste is watching the news, and the news reporter's like, yes, the man suspected of kidnapping the 8-year-old girl Anna, he dove off the bridge, tried to go into the lake, and and we see him hit his head, of course, because we get a nice camera shot of it. But
he's barely too late. He doesn't make it through.
Yeah, but she's just sitting there staring at this mugshot they've got of him, and Ellie sits down and says, "It's him." Like she makes it clear that it's him, and she pulls it because she went to the little computer shop. Which, by the way, I got a weird flashback. When she goes to the computer shop to research her dad and her grandmother, technically also her stepsister, obviously the show Windows XP and the show like the Google logo era 2005, which is obviously cool and brought me back. But the thing that really brought me back that I hadn't thought about, because I didn't find myself doing this that often, but I think this was a college thing maybe, is like the idea that you have a time session and it comes up saying, your session's about to expire, add more minutes. I'm like, oh God, I remember that message. Oh, that's hitting me in the brain. I don't like it. I don't like how well I remember 2005, and that's like the backstory time period in this. That's upsetting to me.
Yep. Because that's the thing. You look at 2005 and it's not that different. Again, they do a good job of masking it, of making sure that it's enough to pass for modern day until the reveal happens. And that's why, she goes into this internet cafe, and if you were to show these computers at any point later on, it's like, okay, this is clearly not modern day, because what the hell are you running right now? But I like how they go the extra mile of the moment she sits down at the computer, they show the full time and date on the monitor, just to be clear, you are in 2005. We're not pretending you're not time traveling anymore. This is exactly where you're at.
Yeah, it's a good job. The money she had on her to pay for this was not like from the future? Like, you know, obviously it's from the future.
No, they cover that. It's as soon as she sits down, it's the first 10 minutes are free.
Oh, she gets. Oh, it's all in 10 minutes.
Yeah, she gets all that done in 10 minutes.
Yeah, okay, but she had to pay for the printout though, surely.
They don't cover that.
Okay, fine. Yeah, because she whips out the printout of the school photograph to show the mum at the end.
Well, theoretically, there's nothing to stop her from Googling those same things in modern day and just printing her out on the home computer.
She went straight home. She didn't go to the...
No, I mean, they have a printer at home. They have a computer at home. Maybe she just printed it out in their bedroom and then walked out in the living room and said, "Here, Mom."
The implication I got was that she printed...
Yeah.
You're right, she could have technically printed it in present day, but it felt like she just went straight to the house and spoke to her mom. So I thought she had that in her pocket from the...
No, I agree, but that you're right. That doesn't make any sense as to why she has that if she didn't have any money.
Yeah, but she pulls this out, points at her and goes, "They didn't mean to leave us." And she even sort of figures out, oh, he was trying to get back. He was trying to come home and he didn't make it. But like, they didn't leave us. And they finally kind of embrace and hug. And like, for the first time in the movie, they kind of understand each other a little bit. So I mean, the ending works. Like, the ending for the character arc is exactly what it should have been. It's about them kind of coming to these terms and understanding each other. Because even Celeste is kind of, in some ways, or at least was obsessed with someone who disappeared in her life. Obviously, she sort of tried to move on to the point where she's like actively bitter if like anyone tries to remind her of him, which is kind of why the relationship with the daughter's so stressed. Like, arguably her thing is like she has to kind of like make peace with what happened in her life, and now she finally can, because she's learned what's actually, to some extent, has learned what happened.
And I mean, that's exactly what's going on in Paris's plot as well. Like, they mirror each other so perfectly in terms of what they're doing. They just do it in very different ways.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, obviously we sort of skip to all the big juicy stuff because it's hard to not talk about that and like get those big things out of the way. But there's a lot, like, we mentioned some of the time travel things, or like, it's set up where, oh, how did this happen? And like, oh, later on there's an explanation. I do appreciate that they did a couple of those setups before we knew it was a time travel movie, because it meant I wasn't looking for them. So when they popped back up later, I was like, oh, that was a nice little setup. And because I didn't come in thinking time travel necessarily, I wasn't sitting thinking of it that way. But, looking back, like when Anna brings in, hey, I found this big moth, this dead moth outside. They're like, hey, that's weird. That's extinct. Well, clearly because it flew through the time barrier. And
it's just been chilling in there for a while.
Yeah.
The only thing conceptually I would have liked to see maybe a little more explored, and this is just me enjoying the rules of time travel, like I like the mechanics of it, is I would have liked a little bit more on the inner, like inside the bubble, inside of the force field. How exactly does that work? Because there's one point, as you said, where Ellie takes a rope from her boat and then like threads it across the trees in order to find her way back to her own time when she's done. And while I appreciate that, theoretically that rope should have always been there, because like she's the one, like it's outside of time. So like the same way these moths are always just kind of around, the same way these wolves are always just kind of around, that rope should have always kind of just been there because it's outside of time.
What's this they're always around thing? I don't follow that part of your logic.
Like all these moths that are landing out on the lake, and we find out like they died and all that. Like, yes, they have to. This is just the way I was interpreting the portal. Again, this may be wrong, but the way I was interpreting it is anything that enters into this portal is kind of just plucked out of time. Like, it's just removed. It's kept in a little separate area until it exits the portal again, and then it's set back in whatever time period it exited out into. That's the way that I was reading this situation. So once the moths, once the wolves, once the rope is in here, theoretically, it's all in this little holding zone. It's all in this little holding zone all the time because it's completely outside of the rest of the flow of time. So the rope should have always been there, because it doesn't make any sense that it was put there at any point, because it's just, I don't know. It's hard to explain because I'm using then and now terms when it's outside of time.
Just to be clear, I don't think of there being like a central bubble or a zone that is outside of time. Like I'm not thinking of it in that way at all. There's no this thing's always there because it's technically in the bubble. It's just as simple as there's different barriers, all kind of imagine like kind of like a maze of prisms almost. And when you walk through certain parts of these different barriers, you pop out into different parts of the timeline. So the moths and the wolves just walked through, or flew through in the moth's case, went through a barrier and ended up in a different time period. There's no like always existing in there somewhere part to this for me.
Yeah, I would. That's the way I was initially interpreting it. The part that threw me was the reason that Paris ends up in modern day is he comes across Ellie's rope.
Yes.
And he follows it the other direction. That's the part that makes me think there has to be some consistency where they are coming across each other's stuff. It's not just this is my trip right now and I'm making my way through here. There's some intersection going on there.
No, there is, and they could have bumped into each other. They just didn't because like she'd already went through, because as it clearly shows, the rope gets cut when the barriers disappear. So that to me kind of indicates, no, it is just barriers for between time periods, and it's not like a central zone that's like separated from everything.
Okay.
Because that's the door shutting. That's just it.
Yeah. But I mean, like, even so, because it's time travel, though, like the time always has to have been there. So theoretically, inside the bubble, the rope is still upright. Because
what bubble? Again, I don't agree there's a bubble.
The force field. Like, okay, yeah. I guess that's just a different way that we were interpreting it.
Yeah.
I see it as you got the lake bed here, and when it's dry, there is a literal bubble that's just around this area that is a time anomaly. And that's the reason why when they were going over the bridge and she started having her little seizure moment thing, was because it was them driving essentially near the bubble. It started messing with them because they were passing over that amount of space. That's what I was picking up from it. I mean, again, this is something I would like a little bit more explanation on, but that's just because I am fascinated by the different ways that people do time travel. And when it's left more up to this, it's just going to be whatever we need it to be, I get a little bit frustrated.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything in the movie that says bubble. I think that's something
Well, it's because there's a physical demarcation line. Like, he steps forward into it, and he loses his hearing and all that.
Yeah, but why do you think there's a place in between the two time periods where there's like a zone?
Because there's a whole motif going on where as they are walking through this, the sound is muffled, and like they can look around and see all this stuff, and then they get to the other part of the timeline, the sound picks back up again. So there is a physical area where they're walking where the sound is all muffled, and it stays that way until they get back to
there is, but it's like a crossover period. But I never took that as like I kind of took it as no, they've crossed over at their time period, and once they're sort of like away far enough from the barrier they've walked through, that's when the sound comes back. It was more like a side effect of walking through kind of thing.
Okay, I see the way you're viewing it. I disagree, but I see the way you're viewing it.
Yeah, I just don't think there's anything to say that there is a bubble. And even if there is, I don't really get the line of thinking that something always has to exist in there. Especially when the movie clearly tells us that it doesn't, because the rope cuts, like things cut and it goes away.
The rope cuts from the outside, but on the inside, that rope still has to be there.
You don't know that. You don't know that at all.
I mean, I guess I don't.
You don't see it again. You have.
Yeah, no, I guess you're right.
And again, that's assuming there was an inside, which I disagree with.
Right. Yeah. All right. Yeah. I mean, it's just different ways of interpreting it, I guess. They don't go into it.
To me, what's happening there is when that rope gets cut, in the other time period the rope went into, there's the other half of the ropes sitting there dangling from the other side.
Okay.
That's what's happening to the rope from what I'm seeing here. I think you've added this extra like element to it, which is making it way more confusing for you than I think it actually is.
Apparently, that's just what I do with this movie.
Well, yeah, I would like you. The face thing is that's just you.
Yeah, that's my own.
I don't even know what to say to that. Right, right. That's just face blindness. I can't. I can't comment on that. But I think there is like a mystical kind of like you don't really like. There's no perceptible way for the characters and for us to sort of know when they're walking through this area, what time period they're going to spit out into. The rope, of course, is one way. The following the sound was the other that we saw throughout the movie. But there is
some level of consistency. Like if you enter at one point and exit at the same point, it's going to be that same point.
In theory, they never quite experiment with that for the characters to truly realize it, and part of that's because it's actually really difficult because it all kind of looks the same. It's all just a bunch of trees coming out of water. It's very similar looking in every direction, so it's hard to kind of get a sense of it. So I think this idea of it being a little disorientating, where they don't really know when they're being spit out, and there's almost a kind of a panic of how do I get back to the right time period? And in some ways, Ellie's lucky she got back to the right time period, because the first time she travels back a month, she didn't really have an anchor set up. She was lucky that the phone sort of brought her back to the right time period. So she kind of lucked out in that sense. But Paris never had that. Paris, stumbles into her rope as he's stumbling through the time periods, and he sees it, and that's what makes him follow to 2022. But while he's doing that, Ellie's in 2005, exploring that time period, so they don't bump into it. Because I thought they might. I thought that was going to be a big moment where they bump into each other, and the two plots would completely converge. But obviously they don't do that. They do instead them learning separately in both time periods what's happened.
Yeah. One has to go to the others in order to get their emotional payoff of whatever happened. Because that's Paris's big moment is he gets injured in the police chase after he's accused of doing whatever with Anna. And so they go to the hospital, and he just so happens to come across his own father, who is on his deathbed in this hospital. And they make peace with each other. They basically say hey, Dad, it's okay. I'm going back. Don't worry about me. Everything's fine.
He makes peace with his father. His father can't speak. He's just lying there in shock. I don't know if I'm going to... If anything, his father probably thinks, I must be dying. I'm hallucinating. I'm seeing my son at the same age he was 15
The moment he opens
ago.
up the window and jumps out, they cut back to the father and just beep.
So, I don't know exactly how much the father is taking from that conversation. I mean, maybe Celeste, because at the end she seems to be fully understanding to some extent, that it really was him. He was here. Maybe she went to visit him before he croaks and says, "Hey, by the way, your son traveled through time and he was here. Unfortunately, he also just died." But that's the bad news.
Oh, you know how your son said he was going back and you don't have to worry? He died very painfully and drowned. So...
At least the hit in the head knocked him out, I think, so he probably didn't feel much of the drowning.
No, probably not. But still, it's not the best way to go.
That's the sad part of Paris' story, actually, is that he went missing and probably for a lot of people was presumed dead. And sadly, that was kind of right. He did go missing and die. It's just that technically it didn't actually happen till much later. But from his perspective, it was only a day or two and then he was dead. So, that kind of is what happened to him in a weird way.
Yeah. I do appreciate how this movie really crosses its T's, dots its I's in terms of, okay, well, why wouldn't they have found Paris's body? It's okay, well, the dam broke. So he's at the bottom of a newly deepened lake. And so there's no reason to be able to assume they'd ever find his body because of that. And but also, tiny things like that.
Yeah, but also that's after the end of the movie, so they may find his body at some point. It doesn't matter if they find his body.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, but obviously that would raise questions about the timeline of why did this man who disappeared nearly 2 decades ago show up, and he looks exactly the same.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that happens, maybe it doesn't, but it's not. Yeah. It's not something that the movie has to concern itself with because it. But
they do that with all the stuff. They do even the tiniest little things of, where'd the boat go, where'd the keys go, stuff like that. The tiny little timings. My favorite bit was we see Ellie wake up at her friend's house. She's got a bunch of calls because Anna went missing. And so she goes and talks to her mom. And her mom seems extra snippy, extra pissed off because obviously Anna's missing. But when she cycles back around, when she goes back to just earlier that day, and she realizes she's traveled back in time, we see that her mom was a little bit more patient and was telling Ellie, hey, go to your stepdad, give him the keys to the boat. We need to be able to do that. We got to take care of that now. And it's only once then the second version comes in and starts asking all the same questions again that the mom's like, what are you doing? Why are you wasting my time here? And you understand why that extra snippiness was there to begin with.
Yeah, and also why the keys to the boat were missing, because the slightly older version of Ellie stole them so she could steal the boat. So just, there's a lot of little things that link up kind of nicely, and they don't all feel like super in your face, like set up when they first come up, but they do pay off in such a way. And the best one being, I'm not related to anyone in this family. Well, yes, you are, Ellie. Yes, you are.
The other thing is, from the time travel perspective, I do like the way that they set it up with Paris, in that he comes to the realization independently, before he even time travels at all, that the mother's seizures were linked to times that there were droughts in the city. And I like that setup because they give the audience a very clear map, and they point out, like, here's where we are now, and then here are previous times that we can go to. And luckily for the audience, there really wasn't that many they could have gone to. So we kind of get a map of, we could show up at any of these points later.
Yeah, well, notably, though, they don't show the map, though, until after they've confirmed to the audience time travel's happening. Because when he first has this realization, they don't show the years intentionally because it would reveal things. And notably, when he does pull that little graph out, when he's realized that he's traveled through time, and you see it only goes up to about 2000-ish, you're like, oh, that's interesting. Why is it only going up to 2000? It's because that's roughly when he is. Turns out to be 2003. We find out later. But obviously, that doesn't account for any future droughts. And obviously, we're having one in 2022. Hence, the present day part of the movie. But maybe the dam bursting is a sign that this is the last one. That there won't be anything anymore. So
I think that was a pretty strong implication of, like, you can't go back, you can't, like, go get him or anything like that. Everything's locked in place now.
Yeah, you can't change the past. And obviously, there's a whole moral quandary of, like, even if we could, should we? Because then he'll never be born, and if he's never born, then Ellie will never be born, and that's a whole domino effect.
Caddo Lake 2, break the grandfather paradox.
Yeah, so, no, because there's a line at the end where Ellie says, I am related to this family through Anna. I'm actually related to her. And Celeste says, you were always part of this family.
No, it was Daniel, but yeah.
Was it?
Yeah, that was her talking to the stepdad. The only thing she says to Celeste is, like, they never left us. And Celeste is
fair
dead
enough,
the whole time.
But it was a nice line anyway, regardless of which one of them said it, because it was just, there was like, like that part of it should be your realization. It doesn't really matter that you're related by blood, ultimately, but yeah, no, I thought stuff was good. Obviously, there's other things like early at the start of the movie, Paris doesn't want to go to this funeral for it's Celeste's grandfather, I think, died.
Yes,
but he doesn't want to go to the funeral because he doesn't want to see her. Because it turns out that he got pretty rough and like needed therapy, and he was really struggling after the death of his mother. And whatever happened with her, like, he doesn't want to see her. He's too humiliated, embarrassed. It'll be too awkward, so he doesn't go. But then Celeste just shows up, or C, I should say, because we don't know it's Celeste yet. But she shows up at his place, and there's a whole thing here when they were a couple. He was building a house for them, like next to his like little house.
Yeah.
And like they do like a whole thing where, and this is maybe one of the things you thought went on too long, where she like pretends that because he's like, oh, this would have been the kitchen, this is where the island goes, and she's like, oh, what do you want for dinner? And she sort of mimes having dinner for a bit. But when we come back to them, we see they're in bed and they've kind of rekindled. Things are a little bit awkward, but clearly she's not got any hard feelings. She's still kind of trying to reach out to him. They've had sex, and that's very notable because as we find out more about Ellie later on, we find out that her dad like didn't know about her, or only would have known about her because Celeste told the crazy lady that showed up that one day that, hey, tell him he's got a daughter. So that sets up the idea that Paris didn't know that he was going to have a daughter because he just literally got Celeste pregnant on this one occasion just before he went missing. So it's just little things like that are all sort of neatly tied up. And
and I wouldn't say that was one of the scenes that I think went on too long. It maybe dragged a tiny little bit. Like, yes, I get it. You're doing a miming of this stuff. The bits that got to me, especially in the Paris plot, was he's part of this scrap pickup in the bayou on this boat. And they spend a lot of time like following this one pipe out to this giant oil drill rig, and it's basically the first time that he gets close to the time travel thing. But I don't know, I just felt like that entire subplot was so completely unnecessary of all this scrap stuff. He could have just gone out for literally any reason. But we had spent an extended time showing him picking up metals and stuff like that.
I don't think it was that much, was it?
I felt like it to me. Maybe I was just
I don't know. I didn't feel they did really do that much to that. It was just kind of like, okay, this is why he's here. Oh, he follows this. He sees this old pump, and when he travels back to the 50s, he sees this pump's working, and it's not like, you know, rusty and just broken down. And that's his first big sign that like he's in a different time period. So I don't know. It was, for me, it was more the stuff where there's like multiple scenes with the dad, like his dad, where he's like, "Oh, we need to talk about mom. I don't think it was really a seizure. Like, I think she was misdiagnosed." And the dad's clearly had enough. He's like, you know, he just wants to move on. He wants to make peace with the fact that his wife's dead, and like, you know, there's like they do that scene a couple of times, and I felt like it was maybe a bit too much. But yeah. I think if you tighten up the first half hour a little bit, I don't really have much to complain about. I think the movie has the right tone. It has kind of a, you know, like, it's kind of like a sort of like ethereal drama kind of tone to it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the right thing for this. Like I said early on, the only real thing going against it is that I've seen something with such a similar premise that does such a similar set of reveals that I just completely got it really early. And it literally just like confirmed everything in the third. It didn't give me anything that surprised me. It just confirmed every little detail that I already kind of predicted. Not that I knew how it was going to end per se, but just I got all the connections. I got that so and so was someone's mother, that so and so was someone's father, and that there was time travel going on. Just a bit earlier than I think I probably should have been putting that stuff together.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out the exact moment, because obviously there's two twists. There's the twist that it's time travel, and then there's the twist that Anna is part of the family, has turned the family tree into a wreath.
Well, even that Paris is the father of Ellie's, I'd say, the third twist, if you want.
Well, I feel like that happens simultaneously with the Anna reveal. They both happen in that parking lot. Like, it's immediately like, that belonged to my fiance's whatever, Anna, and also this is my baby, Ellie.
It's two sides of the same coin, but they're very much like two things that are kind of answered.
Yeah, but like I'm trying to figure out where the movie would put the actual reveal of time travel. Like where should, from the movie's perspective, the audience definitely know about that. And I feel like it's just before Paris like actually goes in and sees all of the junk in there the first time and goes to like the older looking, or the newer looking, I should say, oil rig. I feel like that's the first time where the audience should definitely get it. And yeah, for different reasons, both of us got that probably a good 10-15 minutes earlier than there.
Yeah. And to be fair, I don't think the time travel thing's the problem, though. I think the time travel thing is like, there's enough hints, and it's one of the, like, let's be honest, there's realistically only like a handful of possibilities that there's, you know, broadly speaking, what's going on. So I don't think getting that there's time travel shenanigans going on with the lake is a big deal to get that early. I think it was just how accurately I was able to just guess all the family connections that felt like really, like it took a little bit of wind out of its sails.
Yeah, I would say so. I do think the proper way to view this, though, is blind. Yes. I don't think that there is any benefit to knowing that even there's time travel in this movie.
Yeah, also, I will say, there's not a lot of, like, big effect shots, but the few that they have, which is basically, like, when, oh, this is the dam getting built, so obviously this is, like, all just CG, and then a few other moments, I think do look pretty good for a movie of its size and budget. The only effect that stood out a little bit to me, it was still relatively quite good for, again, a movie of its size, but when the dam burst towards the end and the water was pouring in, I was like, okay, I can kind of tell that's, like, you know.
Yeah.
But it's not embarrassing or anything. It definitely is solid enough for the type of movie it is. They
don't play it as a set piece effect. They play it as the moment of the dam bursting is the set piece. It's the culmination of Paris isn't going to make it.
Yeah.
But they keep it in the background. They only really need to show what they show. They keep it very limited because they know their limitations there.
Yeah, they try and not have any effects take you out of the movie by only showing what they know they can pull off for the most part, and I think that does help it quite a bit. Admittedly, there's not a ton of them, but like I think when they are there, they do a good job with it. And it probably is also the sort of movie where there's probably a lot of hidden effect shots that we're not really even noticing. Like a lot of the shooting have just been in this swamp, and like the different, like how it looks different for each different like time period they're in. Like yeah, they might have just shot that in different locations, but they also might have done a lot of like green screen stuff there to try and like make things match and have flexibility. I'm not sure if they did or not, but any like trickery that was going on there, I didn't notice, and that's a good thing. It's a good thing that I wasn't noticing like anything like uncanny with that, if that was the case. So
yeah, the only thing that I thought was as the sequence started, I thought was going to be a problem, but honestly, it looks fine to me. Is the Ellie going through the yearbooks online and seeing what became of her stepsister / grandmother, and I thought it was going to be, a little bit weird of like maybe some artificial aging or something like that, and like trying to meld together the mother character who we already saw and Anna, who obviously had a much larger role, but honestly, like they just picked a few lookalikes. It looks fine, and because it's all black and white photos as well, like you can barely tell the difference. I mean,
obviously, when they show like her getting married, that's just a different actress because that age is so different from the kid and so different from the older. And even like the older version, like Paris's mom in the car at the start, like we only ever saw her underwater. Like we never really get a good look at her either. So it's not even like it would have really mattered that much. But so. Yeah, I think this is a solid movie. I think it does some smart things. I think it tells its story well. I think for me, the atmosphere is a big part of it that made it kind of work for me, especially since I was guessing the reveals like far too early. But it's, like I say, I feel kind of sorry for her. That I think it would have hit a lot harder had I not seen Dark.
Yeah.
But because I've seen Dark, it really felt like I was going a little bit through the motions of it. These people watched Dark and they thought, we'll do the English-speaking version in a movie. Obviously, Dark got a lot more complex with things, but that's because it was 3 seasons of a TV show.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah, no. This is absolutely just, all right, well, let's take Dark, strip it down to its barest elements, put it in a bayou, and there you go.
Yeah, Dark did get to the incest questions at points as well. Like, that did come up.
Look, on a far enough back time scale, everyone's related to everybody. It's just where you draw your line.
I mean, yeah, okay. So,
especially down in Louisiana, that's like 3 generations tops.
I think they were in Texas because I'm pretty sure like it had like
It's I read it. It was the border between like Louisiana and Texas. Apparently, Lake Caddo is an actual place. Like every time I was going to Wikipedia, it was like, "Did you mean the actual place?" I'm like, "Has anyone?"
Yeah, okay, fair enough. I mean, you could lie to me about that, and I would not know, or be any the wiser.
Yeah.
So
I've done it multiple times just in this review.
No, I think this is a worthwhile watch, and I would say that it's definitely one of the more interesting little sci-fi movies that have come out the last few years. Does it quite have the impact to be like a proper like gem that gets recommended and kind of sticks around? I don't know. Time will tell. I don't know how many people have been talking about this one.
I mean, it's just based off of the M. Night Shyamalan production. I feel like I heard infinitely more about Trap, which was released very, very closely to this one.
Well, yeah, but that was directed by Shyamalan. That's a big difference.
Yeah, but like that's just, I don't feel like I heard anything about this one in terms of the connection to Shyamalan. And it's not like there's any huge names in this. Lauren Ambrose, who plays the older Celeste, was Claire Fisher in 6 Feet Under, and she got like Emmy noms for that. But
which notably was in the time period that the younger version in this is supposed to be in.
So they just had to perfectly match C to look like she was in that show.
Yeah, they didn't. If anything, that was the only thing that made me doubt that they might be the same characters. I was like, well, yeah, but I know what Lauren Ambrose looked like when she was younger.
Right.
But of course, like, yes, there's only one ginger character, of course. They're going to have 2 gingers.
That's the thing. Like, if they had given her brunette hair, I don't think I would have made the connection. I think I would have been like, oh, no, that's clearly 2 different characters. But the moment it's this bright red hair, immediately I'm like, well, there's only one of those.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel quite positive on it. I, but it is tough because I do think it would have hit a lot harder, if it wasn't just so similar to something else, which did hit relatively hard when I watched Dark. So, but yeah, all right. I think we can get into the ratings and stuff now. All right. What was your scene of the movie?
See, it's kind of hard to pinpoint because this does jump back and forth so much between the Paris plot and the Ellie plot. Like, they are so tightly intertwined throughout that it's hard to pick one because it very quickly goes to the opposite side of it. I think the moment that I got the most interest out of in both plots simultaneously as it was unfolding was the internet cafe scene, which was happening at the same time as Paris talking to his dad, because it kind of felt like that's the emotional crescendo for them both. While we do still need to have Ellie making up with her mom, that's the moment where they realize, okay, we don't need to keep looking for Anna. She lived a full life and was stuck in 1952. And also Paris gets to kind of close the book on his dead mom, talking to the dad, saying, I understand everything now. I can put that behind me. I don't need to continue with it anymore.
It does make you wonder, actually. Do you think Anna ever told her husband, like, that she believes she came from the future?
I would have to imagine it would come up at some point, but if the issue is something wrong with her brain, like, he could very easily chalk that up to mental illness.
But I just wonder if part of him, like, I don't want to talk about it, son, is kind of like him, like, we can't have this discussion because you'll never believe what she said to me.
Yeah, maybe.
Kind of thing. Strange. Anyway, I think for me, it's probably when Ellie gets back to her time period at the end and she has that scene with the stepdad. I think that like, I like the scene with the mum as well afterwards, but I think that one just felt like a little sweeter, like her trying to comfort him without being able to admit, because you'll never believe there was time travel happening. So
yeah,
we know that she's speaking from, like, fact.
I mean, you say you'll never believe it. Theoretically, you could make the strong argument with the stuff that she found on Google. Like,
that's true. I mean, maybe she'll show him. I mean, she showed her mom, so maybe they'll, like, whip out all these photographs and be like, "Hey, this was her. This is what she went through." But maybe it's also a case of, like, maybe it's better to not, like, open this can of worms kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because maybe he'll become obsessed with trying to find the time portal or whatever and go back.
I was going to say, that is 100% a recipe for we need to rebuild the dam.
Yeah.
Bigger, higher.
We have to build the dam from orbit. It's the only way to be sure.
Yep.
Well, that doesn't make any sense. But anyway, MVP.
This one is actually really tough because I think even amongst our main leads, Ellie and Paris, both of them do a great job. Celeste is a very strong actress as well, both of them. Obviously, the older one gets a little bit more to work with than the younger. I think just by gut feeling, the one who delivers the best performances, and I also just feel the most relation to in terms of the plot, is going to be Ellie. I think that she just has a bit more going for her. As much as Paris's plot is interesting, of him wanting to find out more about what happened to his mom and all that stuff.
Yeah, but I think the missing girl is more of a driving plot force in Ellie's plot, and then Ellie's the one who has the character arc, really, where she, like, by the end kind of gets to reconnect with her mom. So I think she gets the stronger half of it.
Right. And so you just connect with her a lot more, and that's why that ending beat belongs to her rather than it being Paris, obviously, because he's dead. But
yeah. And just a shout out our scene when they actually talk about is, like, right around the time where we found out about the whole fight where she was throwing plates and, like, the stepdad had to kind of, like, take her outside and, like, not tell her off, but, like, sort of, like, show how serious this is and that you'll have to actually phone the police if she gets violent, kind of thing. There was also a scene where she finds Anna, but it's not Anna that's went missing in, like, the present day. It's Anna who got stuck in her boat about a month ago when she tried to follow Ellie to her friends, and she's upset because of the fight that she witnessed with the mum, and she's like, hey, why did you do this? Why do you hate her? Why do you hate me? Kind of thing. And is this really like kind of thing where Ellie gets to see the effect that she's had on Anna, and maybe that's why she is such like a Like, because everything we see in the present day part, it does seem like she's putting in an effort to be a big sister for her.
Yeah.
And I wonder if, like, actually seeing the effect she had on her, or maybe, she wouldn't have seen it yet, but like, she felt the effect of it from before.
Yeah, that's the thing where Ellie's told later on that Anna is always saying that, oh, Ellie must hate me because she doesn't want to spend any time with me. But from Anna's perspective, that scene right there is Ellie basically saying like, hey, I don't. It's not that.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Just some weird stuff happening right now.
Yeah. So I just wanted to bring that up. So yeah, it's Ellie. I have to go with Ellie as well. So that's the pick. All right, visuals.
I don't feel like there's a very strong cinematography on this, and like I said, I don't think post-production really, like, it wasn't any sort of visual flair to it. It feels competent. It feels very well done, but visually it just kind of does feel a little standard for me. So I think I'm probably just going to cap out at like 6.5. It's fine. It's okay, but it does feel, again, it has that vibe of streaming service more so than actual theatrically produced movie to me.
I think that's a little harsh. It's got some. I think some of the early scenes, especially when we don't know what's going on with the lake yet, and like Ellie's on her own and she hears some sounds, or at one point there's even like a search boat, and like I actually thought they were setting up villains. Where I thought, oh, maybe there's going to be some villainous group from one of the time periods that are like stalking the lake or something. Given the context of later, though, I think it may have just been like a cop boat who is looking for whoever in the swamp. But like I think some of that stuff is kind of eerie and does build a good vibe, and it is, a lot of it is based on the visuals that we're seeing. I think some of the stuff later on works. That some of the the sort of the magic hour shots of like Ellie riding on the boat in the swamp, and like you just get that glow of the sun behind her. There is some nice things here or there. That said, though, I'm not going to say it's like a tour de force of like visual cinema or anything like that either. But I do think it's solid. I would say it's good, so I'm going to go a 7 on the visuals.
Okay. All right. Audio, sound. I think the biggest audio flourish that it has is that muffled noise that happens whenever they pass through the barrier, and that is very good sound design. It makes it very clear of when they are approaching the barrier, and obviously how they play with sounds as well, of you hear the different time periods leaking through. So in terms of sound design, I think it does a great job of working it into the plot and making it work for it. There's not really much outside of those moments, though, that I would say are major audio flourishes, but it's solid the whole way through. So I think I'll probably bump that up to a 7 because it does do a good job with it.
Yeah, 7 again for the audio. I think it's just good. It just works. There's nothing wrong going on. That audio where the sounds leaking through from the time periods and the various effects with that are definitely the standout kind of moments as far as sound goes. And the music's fine, but it didn't stick out to me enough to be like, oh, I remember like some of it.
Yeah, I think I would have appreciated them using maybe like a timeless song from 2003, 2005, something that would still probably play on like pop radio or something, just to be able to say, no, see, we are in that time, but it's still a song you'd hear today, just to like play with that a little bit more. The only thing they actually did was one of the radios said it's Saturday the 24th of September. They said that specifically. And I looked, and it was Saturday the 24th in both 2022 and 2003. So, kudos. Or sorry, not 2003, 2005.
Yeah, which I mean that's a cool little detail. Actually, they did that. I would say that them playing with pop music doesn't feel like it fits the tone of the movie, so I don't think they should have done that.
Oh no, I'm just saying it wouldn't fit tone wise, but I'm just saying one more tiny little hint of oh, this is going to be from a different time period before they did the actual reveal.
But just straight 7 on that.
Right.
Acting.
I mean, we've already talked about this. Nothing really to add on to it. I think everyone did a very good job, and they got across their characters very well. So I'm going to say 7.5.
Yeah, I mean, I think a solid 7 here again. Like, I think I've given everything a 7 so far, but it everything's just good. Like everything's impressive enough. I think the performances work for what it's doing. Particularly, I think the like Ellie and Anna, when they're together early on, it does a good job of making you kind of like their relationship, so that even though the tensions are all there with her and the parents, there is like some good element there, and all which also kind of like makes you care when she goes missing, because it's like, okay, this is the one person Ellie seemed to actually like at the house, so she has like an extra vested interest in wanting to help.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'll say that. So
Okay. Writing, screenplay, script. Best part of the movie, obviously, it's a very, very well thought out script. They really went through, covered all the details, made sure it was very self-consistent. I appreciate the fact that we didn't really have any scenes that were, you know, holding up the paper, putting the pencil through it sort of things of explanations. It explains it by showing the characters experimenting with it, by going through and showing them walk through, end up on the other side, and you get a feel for how it works just from that. So,
yeah, this is the sort of movie where the time travel is an anomaly. It's just a weird anomaly that we don't understand, and we just have to try and figure out how we can navigate it.
Yep. And it doesn't even feel like it's something where they're trying to use it for any like major purpose. Like, regardless of if this time travel thing were here or not, Ellie would still be looking for her sister, and Paris would still be looking for an explanation on the mom. Like, it's not a thing where they're using this because it is time travel. They're using it because they have other things they're doing, and the time travel is there.
Yeah, they have goals, they have motivations. That the time travel's like something they didn't expect. That's kind of an element of it, but the goals are there regardless. Absolutely.
Yep. So I think overall, I probably would end up giving the writing on this. I'm bouncing between an 8 and an 8.5. I think I'm gonna stick with the 8, and that's just because of that first like 30 minutes. Like that, as much as that's editing, that's also a little bit on writing of them having spread that out as wide as they did. So I'm gonna stick with an 8.
Yeah, 8 out of 10 for me as well. On the writing, I think the script is well thought out. I think it never. I think it's obviously doing some high concept stuff, and it's going for a certain tone, but I don't think it ever gets self-indulgent. Because as much as we said, I kind of wanted more of a scene where he actually interacts with the older Celeste, it also shows some restraint that they didn't do that, because it'd be very easy for them to keep going further down the rabbit hole of like all the things we can do because he's going to see things from the future, and it doesn't do that. It doesn't do like a bunch of fish out of water stuff where he sees someone with an iPhone and goes, "What the hell? They're taking a photograph with the phone." Like, you know, like they have no interest in doing the cheap stuff, and I think that's to its benefit in the script. So
we didn't have the moment where Ellie was like, "Wait a minute, where'd you get that necklace? Oh, does this belong to my man? This is Ellie." And she's like, "Oh, invest in Google. Here, take this."
It's too late. It's 2005. Google's already a thing.
Google still explodes upwards. Like, you can still get in.
But it's not like.
That's saying you got to be an initial investor.
No, you invest in Tesla, but with a note saying pull out around 2022-ish.
As soon as you start hearing about the creator in the news, bail.
So definitely by the time Twitter's purchased, get going.
Yep.
I don't know if that's actually a good investment. I don't follow that kind of thing, but that's my
I've tried to commit to memory, and this is totally my own stupidity, but every time we watch a time travel movie, I try to go back and commit to memory the day that Bitcoin peaked. And just be like, no matter when I go back, I can always rely on that day.
Very good, very good. So yeah, 10. I mean, I was talking before there about the time travel stuff, but even just to add on, like, I do think the central character arc is pretty solid, and it hinges on everything. The only real problem, as I've said multiple times now, is just that because it's so similar to Dark, it doesn't feel as fresh as it should. But to be fair, that is something you can perhaps critique, because if they've seen Dark, then they know they're doing something that's very derivative of another thing. So
yeah, I wonder if that's the sort of thing where it began very separate, or not very separate, but time travel with its own thing, and then just through revisions, it kind of refined its way into dark.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. But hey, all right, production value.
I mean, as much as I was critiquing at the beginning the pre-production, post-production, for what it is, for being a Max original, it is very good. I think that they, as we said with the special effects, they focused where they needed to. They did a good job of using this bayou sort of area to its fullest extent. They gave a good fleshed out feeling of the family and everything in regards to that. So the money was spent in very well places. Like it did a good job with it. So I can't say that it's going to get like below a 7. I'll probably just stick with that, just 7.0. It feels like it didn't do anything too bombastic, but it did do good enough.
Yeah, production value is always the one that's the hardest to kind of gauge where you should put it, outside of extremes where it's obviously one or the other. Because I would say that for what this is, it kind of punches a little bit above its weight. I mean, keep in mind, like, they've got so many scenes in this movie inside this lake or swamp where they're going around in boats. Like, that's not easy shooting. That's like, oh, we have to have boats, we have to do this, we have to do that. I mean, sometimes they may be in a pool with green screen, but it felt like they were doing a lot of location stuff here. So I would say that adds a lot of production value. The few moments of effects that they need are pretty solid. I really didn't ever feel like it was overly cutting corners when it came to anything. So I think for me, I probably have to go with a nice comfortable 8 out of 10 for production value, because I think it kind of has enough of what it needs. It doesn't feel like it's lacking in any way. You know, so I'll go with that. So final scores, David.
I mean, I left this feeling good. I left this with, I think we both picked our final, or our best scene of the movie from like the final 15, 20 minutes. So I think it's a good sign that we're connected enough with the characters and we feel an emotional bond enough with them that by the time we hit the end, it really hits. It really does work. That's
a very good point. If your favorite scenes are from the ending, that means that they got you, because you're invested in what's happening.
Yeah, it's not just some random peak in the middle where it's like, oh, you probably just built the whole movie around that. So I think it does a great job with the characters and the concept as well. For all my tinier little nitpicks, overall, it's still a great movie that is definitely worth checking out. I mean, if you've listened to this review, hopefully you've already seen it, because otherwise, dear God, we've robbed you of that. But yeah, so this one's going to be honestly, I'm feeling an 8. I'm feeling like it's bumped up to that 8 level. And maybe that's, I've said it time and time before, I'm a mark for time travel movies, but I think I'm going to land up on there.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me, because I do feel quite positive about it, but there's just that little thing of, oh, this is a good version of something that I've seen done already. So I don't know if I want to slap it with that 8, because I think that's like me saying it's great, and I don't think I'm ready to quite say that. So I think I'm actually going to nudge a little bit lower and say 7.5.
All right. I mean, I might have gone 7.5 if I had seen Dark, because based off of everything I'm seeing and hearing from you, it's very derivative of that.
Yeah, it feels, and maybe they've not seen it. Okay, that's possible, but I don't know. It feels very dark.
Somebody somewhere in the chain must have seen Dark and didn't say anything.
So there you go. That's our review of Caddo Lake. David's got his homework movie in a minute, so he'll get to that. And next time on the show, we're looking at another recent-ish movie, as in a first half of the decade sci-fi movie. It's called The Animal Kingdom, and I know nothing about this, but that's what we're reviewing next week, so look forward to that. Also, before David's homework, I'll just remind you that you can support the show on Patreon. Patreon.com/MailFuzzTV gets you access to bonus shows that me and David do once a month, such as the Criterion Cut, where we review movies from the Criterion Collection, and extra reels, where we review some of the worst things ever made, such as Neil Breen films, such as Uwe Boll films, such as, all sorts of things. So if that sounds fun, there's a back catalogue of both of those shows at this point, so there's a lot of episodes to dig into if you do want to support us over there. Plus, of course, regardless of Patreon, we also have the Collector's Cut, which is the other movie show we do, working through franchises and like director and actor seasons and that kind of thing. So check out that if you haven't as well. But yes, every week on the show, David goes back and watches a movie that we did on the show before he joined the Ace, so that he can catch up on everything. One day he'll have done them all, but we're far from that day yet. So David, what was this week's homework movie?
All right. So I finished up this movie and I said, all right, time travel movie. Let's pick another time travel movie. In fact, let's pick another time travel movie that involves a missing child. In fact, let's pick another time travel movie that involves a missing child set in Louisiana. I didn't think I could get that specific, and yet Synchronic exists. Yeah. So I did a little bit of deeper research because I was coming to the end of movies from the first half of the decade. This one technically on our little official spreadsheet we've got here says 2019, but it got a wide release only in 2020. So
okay,
I'd make an argument. But yeah, so I decided to do that. This is God, I always forget their names. What's the name of the duo?
Oh God,
Yeah.
the two guys that did Something in the Dark and The Endless.
Let me get it pulled up here. This is Benson and Moorhead.
Benson and Moorhead. That's the law firm, Benson and Moorhead.
Yes, exactly. Starring Anthony Mackie, Jamie Dornan, a couple other people.
Yeah, notably much bigger stars in this film than any of the other films. This felt like this is a real movie they're making with actors in it.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't have a lot of experience with Benson and Moorhead. The only other one I had was Something in the Dirt. That movie was so satirical and so much of a parody of like that faux documentary format. Going into this and it being a straight drama really threw me for a loop. I wasn't expecting, I thought that was kind of their thing, was being satirical and slightly off kilter. But no, this is a straight drama. In your review with Tara, you did not spoil pretty much anything. So I don't want to spoil that much here. Even saying that it's time travel is probably a bit too spoilery, but it is a very intriguing movie. I think it's definitely worth checking out. I think that there's this strange dynamic between the lead two characters of Dornan and Mackie that is very subtle the way it's played, and it's almost overshadowed by the time travel aspects of it. But I like the way that their characters play off each other. It feels very natural, very well done. And then as for the sci-fi aspects, the time travel aspects, I think it's possibly one of the most creative time travel methods I've seen in the past like 5-10 years. It feels like it's a very new, fresh thing, very clearly defined. They go through the whole experimentation phase in this movie. They lay down the rules very clearly, so by the time you get to the end, you know exactly what has to happen. I think this one was a very well done film. Overall, I would probably say it matches my experience with Caddo Lake, but just for slightly different reasons, because this one does have a little bit more of that sort of theatrical feel for me. So I'm gonna slap this one with an 8.
Okay. Yeah, I remember feeling positive. Admittedly, I feel like it's not lingered in my brain as much as perhaps I would have liked.
Yeah,
but
there are moments from it that I think are going to stick, but the movie overall does kind of not have this staying power. But it was good as of, where are we at now? 18 hours after watching it.
Yeah. Plus, isn't the friend the guy from 50 Shades of Grey?
Yep, Jamie Dornan.
If I recall
playing
correctly.
An actual honest-to-God character with pathos.
Pathos, oh my.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. I think I like that than most of their films, which I almost feel bad for feeling that way because, like, it's the one that doesn't feel like the little indie movie. Right, because I love little indie movies, but I just like all of theirs are just a little short of being like great. I don't know.
Right.
I mean, I was really not into Something in the Dark, but like The Endless was kind of like that, where it was like, okay, I kind of like this, but it never quite hits the nail on the head.
I still have to get to that one. Haven't gotten to there yet. I'm kind of watching them in reverse now.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah. Anyway. All right, that's the show, everyone. That has been the Atomic Cinema Experiment. Thank you very much for joining us. We do appreciate it. Keep watching science fiction and computer ad salsa.